Think all AP classes are created equal? Well, think again. Some will have college admissions officers swooning, while others will have you questioning your life choices. I'm here to rank all the AP classes and put them into a tier list. So let's get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joey and I go by the Perfect Score Tutor. So for the past 15 years, I've been working with students throughout the country on different aspects of the pre-college process, from SAT to ACT to APs. So this is where my experience helping students with the AP process comes in handy. So before we go into this process, let me kind of break down the way I'm going to look at these AP classes. So I'm going to look at them in terms of 3 criteria. Number 1, I'll be looking at how impressive or expected they are by college admissions officers. Number 2, I'll be looking at how difficult the class and or the exams are. Number 3, I'll just be looking at how useful they are overall in college and or in your daily life. And so here's my tier list over here. So if we're looking at the S tier, I'm going to call that the full ride flex. So these are going to be classes that really impress admissions officers and might kind of push you over into the top tier category. Then in the A tier, we have Dean's List material. So these are really solid academic classes that really should be on your academic transcript. And for the B tier, we have middle child energy. So these are okay. They're whatever. Like, you should probably take them, but nobody's going to write home about them. They might even be forgotten, like the lovely middle child. Then under the C tier, we have college admissions shrug. Meh. Under the D tier, we have did it for the transcript. So you can usually tell that these students are trying to look rigorous, and so they kind of take these classes because they feel like, oh my god, I'm going to take an AP, I'm going to do this one. Then under the F tier, we have like the why did I even take this class? These are classes that, yeah, I'm sorry that you're taking them. So here are my caveats. Caveat is a big word. If you don't know, look it up. So I've worked in admissions for 4 different highly selective universities, and I'm bringing my experience from those schools into this tier list. So you might have opinions that differ from mine, and that's okay. If you do, feel free to leave a comment below. We have the AP 2D Art and AP 3D Art. So these are really niche classes that are useful for students who are considering some sort of major in design, maybe architecture. It could be useful if you want to do something that's CAD related, like industrial engineering. Overall, these classes probably aren't going to be the strongest classes when it comes to admissions. In fact, not a lot of schools even offer these classes, so you'd have to pursue them in some sort of outside opportunity. So let's put it under B tier. I think it could be very helpful for those students who really emphasize art, but for other students, it's not going to be helpful overall. So next we have AP African-American Studies. This is a brand new course that College Board is offering. This is directly in response to the fact that AP US History has been whitewashing throughout the past decades. So this is a direct response, giving students the opportunity to study one very specific niche of our US history. So the difficulty with ranking this class is this is such a brand new class, so there's very little information available. In fact, only around 500 schools even accept credit for this class. I think this is really good in terms of challenging students to think critically about how US history is shaped over the past 300, 400 years. But given that there's so little information about it and how colleges receive it, I'm gonna put it under the C tier. Under the C tier, we have college admissions shrug. Meh. Next, we have AP Biology. So if you've ever been one of my students, then you'll know for a fact that I just don't get biology. If somebody can get me to enjoy biology, I'll definitely give you $5 or something. But let's talk about this in terms of the college admissions process. So this is considered a very rigorous course. It's the stuff that you'll learn in your freshman year, especially if you want to go down the pre-med track. The difficulty with this class is there's a lot of writing that goes on. You have to understand all the different scientific biological processes, and that can be a ton of memorization. So if you're not really good at memorization, you might find yourself in the struggle bus. On the other hand, colleges do expect this type of scientific course because it is still considered very rigorous. Getting a 5 on this AP Bio exam shows that you might have what it takes to do well in a STEM major. So because of that, I'm going to put this into the A tier, your Dean's List material. So these are really solid academic classes that really should be on your academic transcript. Next one is AP Calculus AB. So I have to separate the different calculuses, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm a math guy. I love AP Calculus. In fact, if you think back to the people who founded calculus like Newton and Leibniz and all those other people, the big thing that they had in common is they were not only good at math, but they were also really into philosophy. So they were able to kind of capture this love of learning and love of math into one thought exercise. So because of that and because of my personal bias, I'm going to rank this on the higher end. But not only that, colleges do expect to see that students are taking calculus. For some reason, most colleges view calculus as a form of rigor. And I think this goes back to the idea of how complicated the content is, but also the fact that it relates a lot to like philosophy and epistemology. So calculus AB goes into Dean's List material. So these are really solid academic classes that really should be on your academic transcript. Moving on, we have calculus BC. So this can be a class that causes a lot of students to shiver in their boots. This is a class that covers quite a bit of material. It covers all of the AB material as well as adds a third section on sequences and series. Sequences and series and polar is one of the most abstract, most mind-bending concepts for people who are not naturally inclined towards math. So for a lot of students, I recommend that they steer away from it because it can be a lot. So this class can be very, very challenging. Now, on the other hand, this is an expected class for kids who are going into STEM majors. And oftentimes, it can also be expected for kids who are going to humanities majors, particularly if you're applying for a highly selective institution. So this gets into the S tier. This is the full ride flex. You want to have this class if you're aiming for highly selective institutions. Next, we have AP Chemistry. So AP Chemistry is another one of those classes that can be really, really challenging. So if you're one of those students who's jumping into AP Chemistry cold, I would encourage you to do some sort of prep before you even get into it. Now, this is part of the holy trinity of science classes. A lot of colleges expect students to do bio, chem, and physics. Do they all have to be AP level? No, not necessarily. But this AP class itself can be really rigorous. Not only is there a lot of like memorization that's going on, the rules in AP Chemistry sometimes don't make sense. Any sort of rule that you set up ends up having some sort of exception to the rule, so then you end up having to do a lot of memorization of those like weird cases. Being able to do well in this class right now could theoretically set up your foundations for your future in college and prevent you from getting weeded out in one of those weeder classes. So because of how important this class could be for STEM students, I'm gonna put it into the A tier. This is Dean's List material. Next, we have AP Computer Science A. So this is the more rigorous of the two AP CS classes that they offer. In this particular class, you learn Java as a coding language. So this can be particularly useful if you want to go into CS or engineering, but it's also relevant to kids who want to go into some sort of humanities major. Just knowing a little bit of coding does have some life applications, in my opinion, right? Now, looking at the difficulty of the class and the exam, I think it can be difficult for people who are not very algorithmically oriented, but overall, I feel like this is somewhat manageable. And in terms of impressive and or expected, this is definitely expected by admissions officers if you're going into CS, but also if you're going to CS, they want you to go above and beyond and learn like a million coding languages. So because of that, I'm gonna put this in the B tier. It's useful, but no one's writing home about them. Moving on, we have computer science principles. So this is such a weird class. This is the foundations for CSA. You're supposed to take it before you take CSA in some schools, but other schools don't offer CSA and only offer computer science principles. Then on top of that, they're not required to teach you a specific language. So in terms of the usefulness of this class, it kind of varies all over the place because they're not teaching you any specific language. But then in terms of how difficult the class and the exam are, I've seen like it all over the place. Some kids just do very simple make projects. Other kids are like doing something like crazy and like Flappy Bird and designing these cool projects. Because this class is so unstructured, and let's see over here, let's see how many schools even offer credit for it. Only around like 50 or 60% of colleges even offer credit for this. I'm gonna put this into the D tier. Did it for the transcript. You might get college placement, but realistically, if you're a CS major, they're not gonna give you credit for this. Next, we have the economics courses. So I'm gonna lump micro and macro courses together. Why do so many people wanna study business and econ? That's become like the new undecided major. In terms of that, when students are applying for college and they're looking at them and like, oh, this kid wants to be econ or this kid wants to be in business, but they haven't taken AP econ, then that's gonna be kind of a red flag for them, right? So there's a little bit of expectation there. In terms of the difficulty of the class, it can be on the more difficult side because there is a little bit of quantitative knowledge going on. You have to look at charts and graphs and be able to identify what the relationship is between the charts and the graphs and the actual economics concept. So the class itself can also be seen as quote-unquote easier because these econ classes will only net you 1 semester of college credit in general if you do get credit there. So because of all that, this goes into the B tier because it is an expectation by some colleges, depending on the major. Next, we move on to AP English Language and Composition. So this is a class that many juniors take throughout the United States. But this is one of the most widely taken AP exams. I think in terms of usefulness, it's very useful. Hopefully you speak English if you're going to college. And then this class teaches you the rhetorical principles of how you appeal to different audiences, how you get your point across. And in terms of colleges accepting this as AP class for AP credit, this is also going to be really high as long as you score a 3 or 4 on this exam. Also, this class teaches you how to write essays. Hopefully you have a teacher who's teaching you how to write essays. I think college admissions officers expect this, and here's this little bit of tea for you. If you write this really well-written essay and then they're seeing that you haven't taken AP English language and it's offered by your high school, that's going to be a little bit of a red flag too, right? Why are you writing this magnificent essay and you haven't even taken the AP class or the AP test? For all those reasons, I'm going to put this into the A tier. This is Dean's List material. Then we have AP English Lit. This is kind of like the ugly step sibling of AP English Lang. Why? Because this is usually senior year of high school. Kids are like over all the writing, and then also this class teaches like weird Shakespearean literature, or maybe you have to learn about poetry, and people are like, I don't want to hear about old people talking. So because of that, it kind of has a little bit of a bad rap. It can be a very rigorous class as well. Interestingly enough, it was in AP English Lit where I actually learned how to write like research papers, and it helped me prepare a lot for college level writing. So in terms of usefulness for life, maybe it's a little bit less useful than AP Lang. In terms of difficulty, maybe it's a little bit more difficult than AP English Lang. I will say though that college admissions officers expect students to max out in terms of English. So in terms of an expectedness, there is a high level of expectation there too. So for those reasons, I'd put it under the B tier. Next, we move on to APES, your acronym for AP Environmental Science. So this is a course that I talk with students about, and they're usually considering it this way. They're like, should I take AP Bio or APES? Should I take AP Chemistry or APES? Because APES has a reputation of being a really easy class. I've looked through the curriculum and it can be quite straightforward. It talks about like the water cycle, it talks about pollution, it talks about irrigation, that sort of stuff. And if you're looking at how colleges award credit for this class, most colleges will award 2 classes worth of credit for things like bio, chem, and physics, but they tend to only offer 1 semester worth of credit for a class like APES. From the college admission side, they definitely know that it's one of the easier classes, so because of that, this goes into the D tier. It's clear that you're just doing it for the transcript. Next, we move on to AP European History. So at most of the schools around me, they teach AP Euro in 10th grade before you learn APUSH. But if you look at all the 3 history courses, World History, US History, and European History, if you survey the students, they actually perceive European history to be the hardest AP history class. So when it comes to AP European History, a lot of students are taking this as their first AP history class. So then they're learning how to write LEQs and DBQs for the first time, so it can be like a huge stressor for them. In terms of colleges knowing this, though, there's not any sort of expectation there. In fact, a lot of high schools don't even offer this. Because of this, we can even lump in AP European History and AP World History together in terms of like college perception. Because of that, then I'm just gonna put this into the C tier. Even though it's really difficult work, they're just like, meh. Next we have AP Government. I'm gonna lump in both the government classes, the comparative government and the US government here. This is usually taken as a semester course during your senior year. In my opinion, a lot of AP Gov classes around me are pretty easy, they're pretty laid back. Now, some of these do require memorization, right? You have to memorize maybe the Constitution, the amendments, you have to memorize how the US government works. In terms of applicability to daily life, this should be really important, especially if you're a US law-abiding citizen. So usefulness is really high up there. Rigor though, generally speaking, this class is not super rigorous. I know there are exceptions to this rule. Colleges do expect students to take this class if it's offered because it's like a GPA bump, but they also know that it's not going to be super rigorous. So because of that, I'll put this under the C tier. Next we have AP Hug. So Hug stands for Human Geography. So this is one of the more recent additions to the College Board curriculum. Hug is usually taught in my area for 9th grade students. This is a chance for students to get their feet wet when it comes to AP curriculum. Now when we compare it to all the other social science history classes, this is definitely much easier. The content that they teach though can be very relevant for daily life. They talk about populations, how social media impacts populations. It's really relevant stuff, but none of it is deep or super challenging. When we're looking in terms of credit for this class, usually history classes will give you 2 semesters worth of credit. Hug may give you 1 semester worth of credit, and even then, not all colleges offer any credit for this class. So because of that, this goes into the D tier. In terms of pass rates on the exam, it now has the highest pass rate out of all the history exams. Now let's look at AP World History. So this is a class that is kind of all over the place. I've seen students take it in 10th grade, I've seen students take it in 12th grade. This is the class that used to cover the broadest range of world history. So I know that they've since shortened it to become AP Modern World History, so then the curriculum is much more manageable. To me, this class is still a little bit challenging in that you're gonna have to learn a bunch of different stuff, and it doesn't seem all related to each other. You have to study like Chinese history, you have to study a little bit of European history, you have to study history of the Americas. I think one of the biggest reasons why it has the highest pass rates is that older students tend to take it more often. Overall, I would put this in the B tier. It is a good class, but it's not expected by any college admissions officers by any means. I can only think of one school around me that actually offers this course, and the students had to fight to offer this course. AP Music Theory, this is such a random one, so this is not a very widely taken course. The hardest thing about this course is you actually have to do some sight singing. I don't know if you like singing. If you do, leave a comment below. But just in general, this is again one of those really weird classes where taking it can be very helpful for you if you want to go into music, but at the same time, if you go into music, then you should know all that AP Music Theory anyways. So then it's kind of one of those weird things where like you should have it, but then you also have knowledge that goes way above and beyond that. It's kind of cool to see when a student has taken AP Music Theory because not a lot of students take it. So it's one of those things where for some students it would fall on the D tier. For other students, it would fall under the A tier. So because of that, I guess it kind of has to fall into the C tier because it's in between those two. So we have AP Physics 1. So this is a relatively new course in the College Board canon as well. It used to be all part of like AP Physics B, but then they separated it. It used to be that only under 10% of kids would get a 5 on this exam. Now they're rescaling the exam so that more kids can pass the exam. But here's a couple things about this exam. Number 1, it's really challenging. Number 2, colleges actually don't give a lot of credit for this because in terms of colleges, a lot of college professors want to see calculus-based physics. So this class builds the foundations for physics without teaching you the exact skills you need to do well in college physics. So that's what makes this class really strange. It's a hard class, but it's not really well respected by colleges. So because of that, I'm gonna put this into the C tier. Even worse when it comes to AP Physics 2. AP Physics 2 covers even more abstract principles, but from an algebraic perspective. So we have like light, we have sound, we have electricity, and these things are very mind-boggling for a lot of students. It can be really useful for kids who do want to go into engineering or physics or something like that. Yeah, not all colleges even offer credit for AP Physics 2. So you're gonna work your butt off in this class. It can be useful for engineers, but then at the end of the day, colleges may not respect it as much. So I'm going to put it under the B tier just because it does show rigor on your transcript. So now this is where AP Physics starts to make your mind explode. Now I'm gonna lump the next two AP Physics C classes together because most schools offer them together in one unit. So then most schools will teach 1 semester of mechanics and then they'll teach 1 semester of electricity and magnetism. Usually this class is self-selecting, meaning that the most rigorous, most driven students are gonna take this class. These tests are known to be particularly difficult in terms of concept. The good thing is these tests are really short. In terms of expectations, college admissions people know that these two classes are really challenging, particularly the E and M class. So because of that, this one gets to go into the S tier because of the outsized proportion of weight that admissions officers put on this class. Next, we move on to AP Pre-Calculus. So this class just started a year ago in 2023, and what bothers me about this class is it only teaches about half of what an honors pre-calc class will teach. The content is both easy and challenging. It's easy in that so few concepts are really tested. It's challenging in that it really tests students' abilities to wrap their mind around these subjects and express their answers using written language, not just numerical language. In terms of college credit, very few colleges offer credit for this, under 40% of colleges. If they do, they're gonna offer a pre-calc class credit. And at the end of the day, highly selective colleges don't even offer pre-calculus on their campus. So then I would put this under the D tier. So psychology, like business, is one of those majors that's increasing in popularity. At a lot of schools, it's the most applied to major, and the reason I think for that is there are a lot of students who don't know what they want to do, but are interested in the mind. So in terms of this class's usefulness, it's really useful, right? You're talking over different concepts that are applicable to your daily life. You start to get to psychoanalyze your friends and start to like label them if you want to. So it's really useful there. However, it's one of those semester-long classes. Colleges give you credit for it, but it usually covers just one semester. And in terms of expectations, no college admissions officer expects a student to have taken AP Psych because it's considered an elective course. So because of all the above, this goes into the C tier. It's a big old shrug. So these are some more brand new AP courses that were created to compete with the IB diploma. Next, we have AP Research and AP Seminars. When students are going to college, they don't often get taught how to write research papers. That was a big shock for a lot of my students. So then taking a course like AP Seminar and AP Research can start to build those foundations. So AP Seminar is the first course that you take in the process, and then you take AP Research after that when you get to work on a longer term research paper. You get to create some sort of new novel research based on literature review. In terms of these college courses, Seminar and Research, very few colleges offer credit for this. So the only reasons you want to take these courses is if you want to do anything research related. A lot of high schools don't even offer this course yet either. The AP Seminar, I'm going to put under the D tier because it's such an easy course and it can be seen as a throwaway course. And then the AP Research is going to go into the C tier. So the age-old question that I get from students is, should I do AP Calc or AP Stats? Next we have AP Stats, and one of my biggest pieces of advice is you should do AP Calc if you think you can handle it. So statistics is the really, really ugly step sibling of AP Calculus. So number one, AP Stats is considered a really easy math course. It only covers a semester worth of material at the college level. I get the argument then, but I need stats for my major. I want to be a nurse, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a data statistician, so I need AP Stats to do well. Absolutely, you do. It does have a lot of relevance to your day-to-day life. So in terms of rigor, colleges don't view this as very rigorous. They view it as like a gimme throwaway class. So because of that, I'm gonna put this into the D tier. Please don't come at me for this. This is just the perception in general. There is a shift in perception among college admissions officers, but for the time being, stats always loses out to calculus. Next we have APUSH. So this is normally a junior year class. Sometimes I've seen it in sophomore years, and it's supposed to teach you about the US history. Surprisingly, when it comes to the AP exam difficulty, APUSH is the one that has the lowest pass rate. They've done really good things with the curriculum recently that expands the overview of US history to also include marginalized peoples. So in terms of this class, this can be a very rigorous class depending on the teacher. So if you need to check ahead of time how much work you're going to need to do for this class. However, in terms of its relevancy for US citizens, I view this as almost like an obligation for any US citizen to understand the facets of US history. In terms of what colleges expect, I think there isn't really much of an expectation when it comes to AP US history. So because of that, I'm going to put this into the C tier. You can get your history credits from the other history classes too. So AP Art History is one of those really controversial courses because a lot of students take it because they think it's gonna be an easy like throwaway class, but at the same time, the content of the class can be really challenging. Students are expected to look at different pieces of art and then all of a sudden be able to identify like what time period they come from or what artists like influences are in the picture. So on the one hand, it seems like a throwaway course, and on the other hand, it can require a lot of work depending on the teacher that you have. Now, in terms of college admissions, like wanting to like celebrate a student for it, I don't think it's gonna be very high. So because of that, I'm gonna put it into the B tier. Finally, I'm gonna lump all the language classes together with one exception. So we have the LOTE, language other than English. So from the college admissions perspective, I know that admissions officers love when students challenge themselves by taking 4 years of a different language, a language that is not native to them from birth. So in taking these 4 years of language, it shows that students are able to think in a different way. They may be able to better understand different cultural perspectives. Maybe students take this language that they've learned and use it in opportunities outside of their school. So they really want to see students pushing themselves. And the thing that I get pushed back from is students are like, well, I've already done 3 years and I don't like my Spanish teacher, or like it's hard, and then I'm like, do I really have to do it? And this has been a trend that I've seen more and more often. So can somebody explain to me why this is happening? Because when I was in high school, I was like really excited to take AP Spanish. So in terms of expectations, colleges do have an expectation there. In terms of the curriculum, I find that pushing yourself to learn how to think and speak and read and write in a different language is really important, especially when our European counterparts speak like 3 or more languages and we're over here in the US being like, hola, ¿cómo estás? So I'm gonna put most of the languages other than English into the A tier. Okay, there you have it. You have my ultimate AP tier list. So whether you're taking AP Calculus and flexing with that score, or taking AP Latin and studying like the classics, remember that these classes aren't just about the grade that you get, but how you apply it to your college, to your daily life, and beyond. I definitely know that a lot of you have your own personal opinions, so feel free to leave those in the comments below. And feel free to like and subscribe if you want to learn more about academic chaos.